Welcome to Todd's 2-Minute Tech Tip Tuesday, brought to you by Big Beard Battery. Visit bigbeardbattery.com. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way you don't miss anything. Hit the subscribe button now. Thank you. Hey, on this tech tip, we're going to go ahead and answer some of the questions. Now, since we're going into the winter, there has been a lot of questions coming in. Some of these is, how to survive in your RV in freezing weather, which I've covered that, you check that out here. But there was some great questions that go along with that. Let's look at heater safety. Can we put a space heater in the RV safely? And then let's go ahead and talk about how to keep our plumbing from freezing. So let's go ahead and get into this. So first off, when we're talking about, surviving in your RV in freezing weather. Now, I've covered this a couple times out there. There's things that we can do. Of course, you want to, have sufficient propane in your RV. Make sure that your furnace is nice and clean so that way it is operable whenever you are using it. Do some skirting, whatever you can to prevent the air from getting up underneath the RV, which is really the biggest thing that you can do. And then, of course, my all-time favorite, move south, right? But I understand a lot of you can't, so you already have all that. But let's go ahead and answer the question, because I see this out there quite a bit, and I always see pictures of this. And let's talk about that space heater. Now, I will tell you that if you use it properly, a space heater is absolutely safe to use. Now, the problem that we have with most people using space heaters is they plug those into a power strip. Now, the power strip itself is not rated to handle the wattage that is being consumed by the space heater. Typically, when you have problems, what you see is that the power strip is melted. Now, in order to safely use your space heater, you need to first understand the consumption. Most space heaters will pull anywhere from 1,500 to 1,700 watts. Well, your outlet, that whole circuit, is on a 15 amp breaker. 15 amps times 120 volts is right around 1,800 watts. But here's the problem. You have one outlet. You may have 6 or 7 outlets that are actually going to that one 15 amp breaker. So what you need to do is make sure that there's nothing else on. So you do have to go ahead and check that. You can get yourself a GFCI tester, plug it into the circuit tester, turn off that breaker, and whenever that light goes out, find out what other outlets are actually connected to it. And then whenever you use your space heater, just make sure you don't have anything else on while you're using the space heater. But here's the key. Take that space heater and plug it directly into the wall. Do not use an extension cord, a small extension cord or anything like that, but definitely do not use one of those power strips. That's where the weakness is. Plug that directly into the outlet. The outlet is 15 amp rated. It can handle that space heater. Now, space heater is good for that specific space. Typically what you'll see is if you use the space heater is you'll begin to turn it down as it warms up the room. Now, I think space heaters are great until we get to freezing temperatures outside. When we get to freezing temperatures outside, there's a consideration that we have, and that is those water lines that we have. The space heater will do nothing to protect our water lines. So if we are in freezing weather, it is best for us to use our furnace. You have to check with your RV to make sure that you're 3-season or 4-season or what they call winter rated, right? They all give different names. But what you want to find out is when you turn on the furnace, is that furnace also ducted to where your water lines are? If it is, then the best thing to do to prevent your water lines from freezing is to turn on your furnace. Okay? Now, in order for that to actually operate right, of course, you got to have proper amount of propane. You got to make sure that your furnace is nice and clean. So again, you need to test that before we get into the really cold weather that's coming up. Okay? So, in order to protect your lines, what you want to do, okay, a couple things that you can do. If you know you're coming into cold weather, I'd always recommend take your water hose from outside, stop using the city water pressure, and fill up your holding tank. If you have tank heaters, turn those on. You want to keep those nice and warm. But if you fill up your holding tank, it takes a lot of cold weather in order to freeze, the 50 gallons of water that you have. Okay, so we want to get that to about 3/4 full, right? And of course, you want to use the water inside, but keep that 3/4 full if you can. Disconnect your water hose. Okay, let your water hose have no pressure in it. Protect that water hose as well, right? So empty it out. Right, pick up the hose and get all the loose water that's sitting in the hose, get that out. Turn on your tank heaters, but also turn on your furnace. Now, the furnace only has to be upwards of 60 degrees or something like that. So, make sure that it is on. Do not use the space heater and your furnace, because the space heater may be in the same room as your thermostat. And your thermostat is sitting there working for your furnace, and if the thermostat is nice and satisfied, then it'll never turn on the furnace. So make sure that for the furnace, that the thermostat is not in the same room as your space heater. If it's in the same room where you have a space heater, another thing you can do, heat a blanket. Now, let me go ahead and tell you, the best way, this is Todd's method here, take your heated blanket, put it under your fitted sheets. Heat a blanket first, then your fitted sheets. You're going to thank me later, because now you never have to mess with that heated blanket again. It's under your fitted sheets. Any of you get tired of getting your feet kind of all tied up with that power cord and everything else? Now you don't have to. Put it under the heated sheets. Not only that, heat rises, and if you're laying on top of your heated blanket, then of course we know that you're just laying on a skillet. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to turn down the heat again. So there's your tips on surviving cold weather, right? When we get to freezing weather, turn on that furnace, make sure you got plenty of propane, keep those water lines all nice and warm, and also fill up your holding tank. There's your tech tip. Typically, whenever you have problems, you'll see that the power strip on the inside where I have any joint or whatever you call that, the outside, and then follow up with that. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, on this tick. Not only that, but if heat rises and you're laying on top of the, your heated. Well, that was longer than 2 minutes. We got to that 10-minute mark.